Hi, this is Steve Bragg, and this is a collection of videos from a scuba diving trip to French Polynesia. This was to the northeast of Tahiti. So we started off on the French Polynesia Master, which you can see in the background there. That's a liveaboard dive boat. We had 15 divers and 17 support staff on the boat. And all the diving was conducted from Zodiacs, which you can see us on right here. And the boat would typically go into a coral atoll like Rangiroa or Fakarava. And then we would take the Zodiacs out through the channel to the open ocean on the other side. And most of the diving is conducted in fairly deep water. Now you can see the video here. We've got someone up near the surface at about 15 feet. And as the camera scrolls down, way down, you can see that we've got people down at the legal limit for Tahiti, which is 29 meters or about 90 feet deep. They don't allow anyone further than that unless they have a special certification. Of course, to start off, you have to do some limbering up exercises, like a nice little forward somersault. And after that is done, we get to the main event of the diving, which is observing sharks. So we usually set up either on the outside of a channel or along the sides of a channel when the current's going in or out, usually at a fairly high rate of flow. And the sharks hang out there. So here, several dozen sharks. That's pretty normal for one of these areas. And we'll just sit off in the coral to one side and watch them slide by. The visibility is typically excellent. You can see here it's a slightly murkier. That's usually because the current is outbound, so that water is going out of the lagoon and bringing silt along with it. When the current is inbound, it's extremely clear water. You can see in amazingly long ways. Now in this one here, there's actually a nifty little spot where you can lean up against the wall on the side and watch the sharks down below. Hanging out together in a group. And usually as the current increases, the number of sharks also increases in these areas. So it gets riskier to get into the channels, but the payoff in terms of what you can see is greater over time. And there was some fairly stout diving here, if you want to call it stout even. We were actually going hand over hand through the coral to hang on to things. So another big creature is dolphins. We saw these outside of the Rangiroa Atoll. And they're really fun. They're really playful. And if they don't want you to touch them, they will come really, really close, like within 1 inch of the furthest you can reach, and then peel off, which you're going to see right here. Also, it's fun to watch grown adults try everything humanly possible to touch a dolphin. And as you see, he misses by an inch or so, and off goes the dolphin, and that's that. Now, we had a number of interactions. Rangiroa is a good place to see dolphins. Roughly every third dive we did, there were dolphins getting pretty close to us in the water. There's also a 15-foot hammerhead shark that hangs out in exactly the same area. And occasionally we got to see that instead, though no one really volunteered to touch the hammerhead. Also, you'll notice that everybody goes tearing after the dolphins, which is a bit of a problem because we're hanging out anywhere from 70 to 90 feet. And when the dolphins meet you, they tend to go down and people sort of get dragged along with them. So you have to keep an eye on your depth gauge as you're playing around with the dolphins. Here's a fun one here. Now, one of the dolphins enjoys being petted. And so everybody would zero in on that one. And sometimes it sort of ended up being a group hug, as you can see here, to the point where the dolphin is actually obscured by the divers. A good way to meet a dolphin is to hang off the reef a little bit, maybe 20 or 30 yards. In this case, I was the last one in the group and well off the reef, and a dolphin popped up behind me very quickly. I had just turned around to see if anything was there, and there was not. And probably 3 seconds later, this guy showed up from behind, did a nice spin around, and took off into the deep. And boy, that's fun. Now, there's more than dolphins and sharks in terms of large creatures. We also have mantas. These tend to go by really deep. So what we do, as you can see with the two divers there on the left, is just sit on the coral, usually at the maximum depth of 90 feet, and look down below us to watch the mantas go by. Fairly frequently, but also pretty far down. So there are other videos of this, but they're so far down that the mantas look like a little dot. So here we get to see a medium-sized manta that's maybe 7 or 8 feet wide. just majestically cruising by the reef and spinning around after it's inspected us because they are curious, and off they go. Wow, that is nice. Occasionally you'll see two of them together, and they'll even do sort of a chest bump where they come towards each other and then spin off, doing sort of a backward roll with each other. There are many, many barracudas in French Polynesia. Here's a good-sized school of them. That's probably less than 1,000, but still an awful lot. Almost any dive site has a school of some size. You can almost guarantee to see at least 100 barracudas in most of the channel areas. But the real champion for volume is the snapper. We may have seen 1 million snappers, I'm not sure. But in every single atoll we went to, there were these huge, I guess I'd have to call them fire hoses of snappers zipping along the reef. And as you look here, way back on the right side of the video, it's a gigantic number of snappers going as far off into the distance as you can see. And occasionally we get into it like a giant donut of snappers. We can look in any direction, and the snappers would be virtually everywhere around us. And that is an impressive sight. That may match the number of snappers you'll see in the entire Caribbean right there. There are also a lot smaller fish that go in schools. So here we have needlefish up near the surface. We tend to look around for these during our safety stops when we're just hanging a few feet below the surface. Here we've got a really nice color reflection against the surface of the water. Another nifty one is the Moorish idol. In other parts of the world, you'd be lucky to see one or two of them, and they would probably swim away as soon as you got within a few feet. In these cases, the Moorish idols don't even know what divers are, and they're schooling in these very large numbers, so you can swim right through the middle, and they just sit there and stare at you. Now, in addition to Moorish idols, there are a couple of rather odd critters out there. One of them is the star puffer. Almost looks like something out of, maybe a prehistoric movie. It's got the fixed mouth that doesn't seem to be capable of moving it at all, and just sort of flutters around out there. They're moderately common in the area. Here we have something way more fun-looking. This is an African pompano. And the image is going to move around a bit because I was in a bit of a stern chase trying to catch up with this thing. Very nifty. And then finally we have, right in broad daylight, that is an octopus right in the middle. Kind of hard to see because it's trying to blend in. And that's an example of what we've got. Now on top of that, during a safety stop, you can always blow smoke rings to get up to the top. And that is it for our quick overview of French Polynesian diving. Hope you liked it.